Hello and welcome back to Phat Pack Magic, where we are in our final round for Pioneer for this event. Now, on the left we got Vince Mallow, who's undefeated and piloting Izzet Phoenixes with great success. And on the right we also have Joe Loster, who's undefeated and running with the Rakdos Vehicles. Now, it looks like Joe is going to be on the play as they draw up their opening hands. Now, I've seen Joe Loster's deck, and his deck is insane. I love the abilities. I love the fact that there's so much just juicy good stuff going on with the great standard cards of yore. So it looks like he's got a great opening hand, and he's going to start off with a Bowmat Courier, pinging Vince down to 19 and tucking a card underneath. Vince draws, and he's got a juicy synergy of cards in hand, and he starts off with a Shivan Reef and passes the turn back. He's under very little pressure at the moment with only a Bowmat Courier causing problems for him. But that Bowmat Courier is going to swing in again, and Joe's going to tuck another card underneath. And the question is, what is Joe's follow-up play going to be? And it's just a Blood Crypt. And Vince decides he's going to fire off that Lightning Axe, discarding a Arclight Phoenix to it, and taking 1 point of damage from using Shivan Reef. But his hand is pretty stacked with other juicy good stuff, and he taps 2 and goes for a Thing in the Ice. Now, Thing in the Ice is a modern nightmare at the moment, as is quite a few other things going on with the Izzet Phoenixes deck. And Vince has plenty of spells to fire off with it. Now, Joe has drawn another Bowmat Courier, but it depends on whether or not he thinks he's going to be able to bait that Thing in the Ice into blocking. He drops a Bowmat Courier, swings in, Vince blocks, tucks a card underneath, and Joe just passes the turn back, seemingly just grabbing one card underneath the Bowmat Courier. But Vince decides to hit himself again with a Shock Land, going for Chart a Course to draw 2 cards, removing a counter from Thing in the Ice, and quite a good amount of cards that he's got, and Fiery Temper as the discarded card, acting as a lightning bolt against that Bowmat Courier and removing another counter from Thing in the Ice. Thing in the Ice is almost live, but Joe seems undisturbed by it. I think he's got an answer for it, he just doesn't know when he wants to fire it off. But he's drawn a Smuggler's Copter, which is a pivotal card for his deck, especially with what he has in hand being a bunch of lands. Now, in hand, it shows he's got an Unlicensed Disintegration, but he's going to start off with Chandra, and she is going to finish off the work that Bowmat Courier started by killing the Thing in the Ice and going down to 1 loyalty counter. And Vince has drawn another Chart a Course. So he's going to start off with an Opt, looking at the top card, deciding not to draw it, and instead drawing something else, and it's another Thing in the Ice. Now, the question is, does he want to be cheeky here and play the Thing in the Ice and try and get more value? Or does he want to try and finish off that Chandra? And that's what he's going to do. And I think that's definitely the correct play, because Chandra's already 2-for-1 him, and her being able to fire off more cards from the top of her from his library, or just accelerate, doesn't seem like a pretty good thing against Vince. But Joe has a follow-up in the form of Heart of Kiran and Smuggler's Copter, and all he needs is one creature to go live. Vince deciding on how he wants to play out his turn, and unfortunately, he missed the Arclight trigger with the previous turn. Wow. But he starts off with the Thing in the Ice this turn, plays a land, passes it back, and Joe is holding a suite of removal. It looks like a Scrap Heap Scrounger and an Unlicensed Disintegration. Now, it doesn't look like he's got much fodder to chuck with the Smuggler's Copter, so he's probably going to want to just go in with the Heart of Kiran, and that seems to be the play. Crews up the Heart of Kiran and swings at Vince, bringing him down to 11, and holding 1 card in hand, and that's the Unlicensed Disintegration. Now the unfortunate thing is that Vince would be able to start applying pressure with the Phoenix this turn, but because he missed the trigger, he's going to be on the back foot here and looking for blockers. Especially because those vehicles aren't creatures, and he already chucked his lightning axe. So Joe passes the turn, Vince draws a card, and looks like he's going to start with another Chart a Course, removing a counter off the thing in the ice, draws, and Treasure Cruise, and Lightning Axe. Now the great thing is he'll be able to kill off the Scrap Heap Scrounger by discarding to the Chart a Course, using Fiery Temper to blow up the Scrounger, and he'll be able to run out, wait, what? Okay, so Vince is opting to go on a Treasure Cruise to draw 2 cards, or 3 cards, and remove a counter. Now the question is, well, okay, so, it's resolved. Joe deciding on whether or not he wants to let it go. Now he's drawn a second Arclight Phoenix and a Crackling Drake. Now he just needs a way to put him in the yard. But he has a Lightning Axe, so that'll chuck away the Phoenix. And this time he remembers the Phoenix trigger, and the Phoenix has come back, and it's a juicy 3/2 that's going to be able to chump the Heart of Kiron or trade with the Smuggler's Copter, while Joe has an Unlicensed Disintegration in hand that's probably going to take care of that thing in the ice and prevent it from bouncing his field. Joe deciding on whether or not he wants to fire off that Unlicensed Disintegration, or if he wants to use the Scrap Heap Scrounger. And he's going to go for the Scrap Heap Scrounger, exiling a Bowmat Courier that had done its work and then some. And he's got an advantageous situation here. He can choose to fire off the Unlicensed Disintegration at the Phoenix, but he's going to go for maximum damage, killing off the thing in the ice, and now he's going to try and make Vince chump block by swinging with the Heart of Kiron, and he does. And Vince is at 8 life and facing down a very dangerous board, because the 2 creatures that Vince has taken care of with Lightning Axe, the Bowmat Courier and everything, those creatures are just fodder for the Scrap Heap Scrounger. But he looks like he's got an Izzet Charm, but he wants to land more, so he's gonna ditch the Izzet Charm, and he's got looks like a Bazaar Trader, the one where you pay 1 red, discard a card, and draw a card, which is fine. It's a great cantrip for this kind of deck. But the question is, does Vince want to get the Arclight Phoenix back? Now, he's in a precocious position because he knows if he kills that Scrap Heap Scrounger, it's going to come back again, and it's just going to be able to crew up. So he's going to discard a card. He's discarding the Phoenix and drawing out another Phoenix. Now, if only he's got that Lightning Axe, and that can really take care of the Heart of Kiron when it crews up. The question is, does he feel like Joe's going to, go with the Heart of Kiron? And he's going to discard the Lightning Axe, discard the Arclight Phoenix to a Lightning Axe, targeting the Scrap Heap Scrounger, and all Vince has in play, well, they're 3 Phoenixes, okay. But Vince is facing down lethal here if Joe draws another creature to crew up. So he can't Alpha Strike and just start chipping in damage. I kind of feel like he should have held onto that Lightning Axe for later and try and, goad out the Heart of Kiron. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But Joe has drawn a Wild Slash, which, will be able to kill one of the Phoenixes. but he's still gonna have to face 2 more that are gonna try and trade for his Heart of Kiran. Joe looking over his options. I bet he's asking himself, how do I get through these Phoenixes? I mean, he's got amazing pressure, and he's going to crew up with the Smuggler's Copter, drawing and discarding. Is he going to try and bait only 1 Phoenix and keep the Smuggler's Copter? And Vince says, no, I'm going to double block, because he's not going to let himself get pumped out by tricks. Now the question is, so Joe is going to kill one of the Phoenixes, deal 1 damage to the other one, but he has a Chain Whirler in hand. Wow! And that Chain Whirler is going to deal 1 to Vince, kill off the other Phoenix, and leave him with an incredibly strong board presence here. And Vince is down to 2 cards in hand, and it's going to be hard to recur those Phoenixes unless he draws another cantrip. So he taps 4. And here is Cracklin' Drake with a fat, gigantic power. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Very fat Drake. A very morbidly obese Drake. That's going to be able to block the Heart of Kiran. Or it can, if Vince wants to take a chance, it can block the Goblin Chain Whirler and chump block with the Phoenix against the Heart of Kiran, and leave Joe with a not an empty board, but being able to take out 2 creatures at once. Now, Vince has Fiery Temper in hand, and Joe has the Wild Slash. So if Vince tries and blocks the Chain Whirler with the Crackling Drake, Joe can go before damage, deal 2 to the Wild Slash, and Vince can say, well, in response, I will Fiery Temper your Chain Whirler. But it would have to be before first strike damage happens. And it looks like they're both asking, what can the other person have in hand that is causing such a stalemate? So he's gonna crew up the Heart of Kiran with, am I saying that right? Am I even saying that right? Heart of Kiran, whatever. Anyways, he's gonna crew it up and swing in, and the Crackling Drake is gonna go in front of the Heart of Kiran, and Goblin Chain Whirler is gonna be left unblocked, and Fiery Temper goes off on the Chain Whirler, gonna deal 3 damage to that, and the Crackling Drake is going to trade for the Heart of Kiran. And both players are looking at staring each other down with massive recurring effects. The Scrap Heap Scrounger has gotten more food with the Chain Whirler, and the Arclight Phoenix is just going to be able to bounce back with his buddies all the time. But Vince is just drawing into lands, and I think that's where this little buddy is going to come into play. Able to discard a card and draw a card, chucking away those extra lands and hoping to just find more spells. All he needs is a good cantrip, but there's a Thing in the Ice, and that's going to land and prove as a decent blocker against the Scrap Heap Scrounger. And Vince is finally starting to take on the aggressive role, swing at Joe for 3, bring him down to 17, and Joe has another Chain Whirler and a Wild Slash. I mean, that's going to be one heck of a play, because Vince has to block with the Thing in the Ice. And goes to damage, second main. Here comes Chain Whirler, nuke your Thing in the Ice. And now Joe has a 3/3 first striker. Chain Whirler proving to be just as strong in this format as it was in Standard. And here comes a Wild Slash to prevent Vince from gaining any advantage off of his next land draws. And it looks like that's exactly what he has in hand, another land. He passes the turn back, He's got the Phoenix for chump blocking duty against the Chain Whirler. But Joe has drawn an unlicensed disintegration, and he fires it off, killing the Phoenix, dealing 3 damage to Vince, and being able to alpha strike, and that is game 1 for Joe. Wow! Joe's deck full of such live draws and such efficiency and such recursion, being able to get through 3 and 4 and 5 Phoenixes. But we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, so stick around and we'll be right back. Hey guys, I want to give a quick shout out here to Your Playmat. These guys offer fully customizable playmats, card sleeves, and foil playmats. Now, I wouldn't be talking to you guys about these mats unless I personally believed in them. So check this out. Yeah, that is the Mox Jet Altar on the Phat Pack Magic draft videos, and we put that on a mat. And here's the best part. Your Playmat believes in me and believes in my channel, and therefore believes in you guys. So that's why they're doing a special discount code only for Phat Pack Magic YouTube subscribers. Put in the code PPM15 and get 15% off any playmat you order. Foil, regular, anything you're looking for. PPM15. So what are you guys waiting for? Go make your own mats and show off your style. And we are back. Vince has shuffled up, and so has Joe, and we're preparing for the next game. Vince is going to be on the play for this one, and that is going to be pretty good for the Phoenixes deck. And his hand looks pretty good so far. He's got a lot of removal. There's a Phoenix, and he's got a discard outlet. Vince says he's good to go. Joe acknowledges that he's good to go, and we are about to start. Joe's still deciding. Wait. Yep, he's fine. So Vince starts off with the Sulphur Falls tapped, and Joe is going to start off with a Mountain into a Soul Scar Mage. Now, Soul Scar Mage used to be one of the big creatures in the mono red deck, being able to work incredibly well with Chain Whirler, taking down blockers with -1/-1 counters. And Vince starts off his play with a Thing in the Ice. Joe has drawn a Glory Bringer for the turn. A little fat and a little early, but it's a fine draw nonetheless. And he's going to play land and show off a Dreadbore and come in crashing against Vince for 2 with the Prowess trigger on that Soul Scar Mage. Vince going to start off his turn with a Chart a Course, drawing 2, and a good 2 it looks like, and discarding the Phoenix to it. And having to play the Sulphur Falls tapped really puts him back a turn because he's got a lot of good cards in hand, and he could have fired off that Wild Slash against the Soul Scar Mage and start crashing him with the Phoenix. But that's okay. Vince takes 1, goes down to 17, and Joe is going to follow it up with a Goblin Chain Whirler, pinging Vince for another damage. Vince starts off his turn with an Island and an Opt, and doesn't look like... it's fine. Oh, that's a Lightning Axe. Taps 2. There's a Lava Coil for that pretty little Chain Whirler. Nuking it to orbit, and a Flame Slash, killing off that Soul Scar Mage, bringing back the Phoenix and swinging in at Joe for 3. Joe draws for turn, and it looks like a Bone Crusher Giant, one of the big creatures that came from Thrones of Eldraine, an amazing creature that basically says Magma Jet, and then draw a 4/3 for your next turn. Vince is going to combat, and Joe says, hold up, I have a response. Here's the Bone Crusher Giant, dealing 2 damage to the Phoenix, preventing a little bit of damage, and Vince deciding, okay, okay, yeah. So the Phoenix is dead, and now Vince starts off with the Chart a Course, draws 2, and there's a Treasure Cruise and a Fiery Temper. Now, I don't think he wants to do too much this turn because It's not going to bring the Phoenix back, but he's going to use a treasure cruise and just nuke all that trash and draw 3 brand new beautiful cards. And there's an Arclight Phoenix to go along with his Lightning Axe. Vince passes the turn back, and Joe definitely has a Bone Crusher Giant to play, but he's also got a ton of lands. It's turn 5, so he can start running out that Glory Bringer. But he doesn't have much of a play aside from the Unlicensed Disintegration and the Bone Crusher Giant. And if only he could cast both on this turn, it would be he would be in a much better situation. But he's going to run out that Glory Bringer. A 4/4 haste flying dragon that's going to be able to start hitting stuff. And Vince says, you know what? Nope. Lightning Axe. Discarding a Phoenix. And passes the turn back. Effectively a time walk for Vince. Now the question is, can Vince bring back those Phoenixes? Opt. Scry to the bottom. Draw a card. And there it is. Chart a course, baby. Drawing 2 cards. A Brazen Borrower and a Glory Bringer. And the question is, what to chuck? And it's a Fiery Temper, dealing 3 to Joe Loster's face. That seems like a pretty good trade. And the Phoenixes come crashing in for 6, swinging right at Joe, and bringing him down to 5. Joe looking at his hand, and he's kind of stuck here. He's at 5, facing down lethal from 2 Phoenixes. He can kill 1 with the Unlicensed Disintegration. Vince draws for turn. Here's a Glory Bringer. Just a little bit insult to injury, and Joe picks up the cards. And that is a game win for Vince, tying the game 1-1. And we are moving on into the final game of this match. They shuffled up and did all their stuff, so I edited a little bit forward because there was a lot of shuffling going on. A lot of a lot of sideboarding and a lot of shuffling. But Joe is starting off with a Bomat Courier, his signature turn 1 spell that pings Vince down to 19 and tucks a card underneath. Now, what does Vince have to follow it up with? And it's a pretty island. Not much, but it's a pretty island. He's got a few cards in hand, like a Lightning Axe, that's pretty good. The question is, does he have a Phoenix to go along with it? And Joe pings in at Vince, bringing him down to 18, and follows it up with a Scrap Heap Scrounger. That pressure just got real. And there's a Lava Coil for that Scrounger, preventing it from recurring by exiling it from the damage. Wow! But Joe's gonna ping at Vince again, bringing him down to 17, and he has 3 cards underneath. So now the main thing he wants to do is just get rid of his hand and cash in that Bomat Courier. But Vince has drawn an Arclight Phoenix. He plays a Sulphur Falls. Now he needs another spell, and he can potentially chart that Phoenix away. But instead he says, you know what, I'm going to pass the turn. He's going to hold up. He's got a lot of control going on, and he doesn't want to blow his advantage. But Joe has drawn a Black Magic deck box, but he has drawn a Chandra. Question, is he going to play land for turn first? Yep, he's going to do his land for turn. Going through if he wants to try and crew a Copter, or if he wants to play out that Chandra. Goes to combat, Wild Slash nukes that little Bomat Courier, which I'm sure Joe would have been happy to trade all the cards underneath for if he hadn't drawn that Chandra. So Bomat Courier goes away, the 3 cards that are tucked underneath are gone forever, and they move on to their second main phase, where Joe decides, looks like he's going to play out Chandra, and he's got an amazing play here, where he can go Chandra and Smuggler's Copter, but Vince has a more amazing play with an Izzet Charm to counter unless he pays 2. Vince's turn begins. He draws a land for turn, and he's got a Phoenix with a lightning axe. And the question is if he wants to just kind of wait or if he wants to fire it off. He's content to just sit there at the moment. But Joe has a great follow-up play for this turn in the form of Bomat Courier. But Hazoret is incredibly good too, and completely nukes all of Vince's potential advantage as he drops a Bomat Courier to go along with it. Suddenly Hazoret has haste and is able to attack because Joe only has one card in hand, and Vince is staring down a very dangerous situation. That Hazoret is a ticking time bomb that is going to be able to chuck away his excess cards. But Vince says, you know what, hold up. We're going to stop that Bomat Courier real quick and Wild Slash it and kind of mitigate some of the damage. But Hazoret, being indestructible, is going to crash in for 5 damage. And Vince is on the back foot here. He's going to have to try and cobble together some kind of amalgam of chump blockers in addition to being able to start attacking, because the Hazoret's ability is going to be is basically a 6-turn clock at the moment. So Phoenix comes down, as does a land, in the form of a chump blocker, hoping to just stymie some of the damage that Joe's going to be putting out. And Joe has drawn a Dreadbore. That Dreadbore equating to essentially 5 damage at Vince's face, because the Phoenix, if he can chalk together enough cantrips and enough spells and enough Phoenixes in the graveyard, they're going to be able to create enough blockers that eventually Vince might be able to start getting that offensive going. But Dreadbore is going to really hurt the clock here. Joe deciding on whether or not, and he's going to fire it off, killing that Phoenix, swinging in for 5, bringing Vince down to 7, and he has 1 card in hand he can chuck at Vince's face. And another next turn, Vince essentially on a 3-turn clock, even if he does assemble a ton of chump blockers here. Vince looking at his hand, and he's going to lightning axe the Hazoret just to try and get some stuff in the yard to be able to use Treasure Cruise. And he's going to draw 3 cards. Yep, that's the math. He's going to draw 3 cards, leaving an Arclight Phoenix in the yard just so he can pull it back as a chump blocker. Here's an Opt. Vin's desperately looking at it. Decides it's going to go to the bottom. He draws a card. It's another Lightning Axe. It's not going to do anything against that Hazoret, but an Arclight Phoenix will get him another turn. Now passes the turn back to Joe. Joe deciding on whether or not he wants to chuck that Smuggler's Copter in hopes of dealing 2 damage in case he has to slog through a bunch of Arclight Phoenixes. He's really considering it. He's got the mana, he's got the tempo for it. He can eat through those Phoenixes and just force Vince to lose all of his card advantage to try and keep himself alive against that Hazoret. And Hazoret has 3 turns, 3 draw straps. Is it enough? And he says, yep, I'm going to chuck it. 2 to your face. Vince goes down to 5. Joe draws return. And it's a Bone Crusher Giant, dealing 2 damage to the Arclight Phoenix. The Phoenix can't do anything against it. And Joe gets the match win. Wow! Man, of all the things Vince to face down, Hazoret had to be one of the worst cards that he could play against. All of his removal, all of his damage, all of it meant nothing against a Hazoret that was just going to be able to chuck 2 damage at his face every turn and start crashing in for 5. And what a game, what a match. Joe Loster taking this match down, and ultimately the finals at the Darkside Pioneer FNM event. So, I mean, we're going to start doing more of these. These have been so much fun to do commentary on. They've been so much fun to watch. So stick around because we're going to do a lot more. We're going to do a lot more stuff. And we still have Vintage Cube Draft coming up. We've got a Vintage Cube Draft League So to get all this content, all you got to do is hit that subscription, hit that notification bell, and if you want to support the channel and what we're doing, check out some of the links in the description below. But until next time, may all your packs be fat.